walk through, and you can do it from a personal lens, because again, I just want to point out that you're not only talking from an expert hormone slant, but you're talking from a perimenopausal slant. Walk through like how the symptoms, because I can tell you when I was going through perimenopause, there were a few symptoms that shocked me. Probably the biggest one is that I couldn't do the same amount of work that I used to do in a day. I would say that symptom's actually still around. Like I used to be, you give me a 10 to 12 hour workday and I would pump that out with a smile on my face. Now I'm like 5 hours, I'm like, I'm done. I've had enough. So let's just walk through some of the major brain symptoms so that people can really understand that it's not their fault.
It's not their fault.
That it is menopause.
It is, yeah. So the kind of the first brain symptoms that you'll notice, I'd like to just walk you through that timeline.
Yeah, let's
early
do that.
40s, maybe even late 30s, but I would say early 40s. I know for me, I felt like I fell off a cliff at 43. I was like,
yeah, me too. 43 was a big year where I was like, what happened?
Yeah, you were like, what just happened to me?
Yeah.
I was shook.
Exactly. It was, I always say it was like at 40, I came into my 40s, like in the best health of my life. By 43, I was on the couch crying.
No, that was very much. I went from postpartum. I had a baby at 41. I was cruising after those first 9 months, a little rough. And then I was doing so great. I remember heading into 23, barely 43, and I just fell off a cliff. And I was like, and initially you're like, what's happening? I went down all the rabbit holes. I'm like, what is this? And I was, it's perimenopause. So those initial symptoms will feel like, again, irritability, especially towards your period. So all of a sudden PMS symptoms are a little bit heightened. You may even feel, what I've noticed is a lack of stress resilience. So things that you had major capacity for, you don't have that capacity. These longer work days where you're juggling all the things, you work your 8-hour shift and then you go into mom mode for another 5 hours, you realize you don't have it in the tank. Someone's asking you some very cerebral questions and you're like, my brain stopped working at 5 o'clock. If I made it to that point. So you'll notice, again, brain fog, not an inability, like how women describe it is I'm not as productive, because there's always languaging around like how am I showing up? So I'm not as productive. I'm not able to do as much as I used to be able to do. I find myself not having as much patience or understanding or compassion for a lot of circumstances. My sleep is beginning. I'm having a harder time going to sleep. I feel wired and tired at night before bed. And I'm maybe even waking up at night in the middle of the night. And then the other thing that may be even more so for me, it's not even just irritability, it's anger and rage. So there'll be a couple.
Oh yeah. That shocked me. It scared me.
Oh yeah. I remember where I felt like there was this, like a demon trying to get out of my body. It was like a fire inside of my system that was looking to get unleashed. And I'm still trying to gentle parent to my 3-year-old at the same time.
Right.
So that the rage and the anger was very scary for me. And then the lack of word recall. I'd be in a conversation with you, where I would be in an interview, or I would just be talking to a bestie, and all of a sudden that word just fluttered away. It was never coming back. It was never coming back. So the lack of word recall, lack of concentration, and also alertness. So those are kind of those early symptoms. And again, they can look like maybe I didn't get enough sleep last night.
They're sneaky. This is why I want to unpack this, because I see it now looking back. But when I was in it, everything you just said looked like, this is what my brain said. I'm burnt out. I don't want to keep doing my job anymore. My husband is annoying me. Like, why is he not treating me the same way he was before? Like, I'm done being a mom. These kids are in teenage years. Like, what the heck is going on?
Testing me.
I couldn't pick up a book and just read a novel. I'm finally starting to be able to read a novel now for the first time. I couldn't focus on that. I kept forgetting my task list all over the place. It literally felt like somebody had given me 2 legs and said, okay, two left legs. And we're like, here you go. Try to walk. Every day I felt like I was tripping all over myself. So, and stress resilience is another one. As a human that I could I had so much, and I still have a ton of grit, but I was like you, I was like, I could put my head down and do anything. And I no longer wanted to do that. So, how do we help a woman understand? I could have easily said, my kids, who I love, by the way, are 24 and 22 and are amazing humans. I just so proud. My mama heart is so proud. But I could have said, oh, I messed up as a parent. I could have divorced my husband, which I didn't. I could have totally quit my job, which I didn't. Like, there's so many things that appeared as external problems, but were actually my internal ability to interpret those problems had changed. And how do we know the difference between, hubby, I need to leave you, and hubby, my brain has now taken on a new level of stress?
Ooh, that is because it's a yes and. Yes, partners need to understand. Yes, partners need full-on communication. And yes, I am calibrating. Is this a situation where in my relationship, there are things that are not, that are major, fissures in our relationship, in our marriage or partnership? Right. Or is this just me really struggling? I think, whether that's couples therapy or, vulnerability or maybe trauma work that helps you kind of sift through that. I will say that the highest number of divorce is in this time. Yeah.
I know. And 70% of them are initiated by women.